we're going to dive deep, you and I, into a story that is just as fiery and just as smooth as the music that it inspired. It's the story of Rick James and Teena Marie.
Two powerful forces in
We've
music.
got Fire and Ivory, the electrifying rise and tragic fall of Rick James and Teena Marie. That's our source material.
And we're going to unpack it for you.
That's right. We're going to distill it down, get rid of all the fluff. We're just going to get right to the heart of the story. What's fascinating here is that it's not just a story about two incredibly talented musicians.
Yeah.
It's about a connection that goes beyond, I think, a typical, sort of professional collaboration.
Right.
Or even a typical romantic entanglement. It's something deeper. It's a bond. It was forged in the intensity of creativity. And, complicated by very personal struggles.
Yeah.
It's a great way to really look at how an artist's life and their art can become just completely inseparable.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start. Let's unpack this. Let's first look at the man who would become the street funk prince of Buffalo. Rick James.
Born James Ambrose Johnson Jr. in 1948. His early life in Buffalo, New York, presented some real challenges. So his father left the family when Rick was just 10 years old, leaving his mother to raise 8 kids on her own, and she was working as a numbers runner.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
I mean, talk about instilling a sense of survival.
Yeah. Yeah, toughness.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that definitely shaped his outlook on life.
Absolutely. And I think what's important for us to understand is that this early exposure to that tougher reality combined with a genuine love for music, he loved jazz, he loved soul, he loved rock, absorbing the sounds of giants like Miles Davis, James Brown.
Absolutely.
That created a very interesting, very unique foundation.
Yeah.
It's that creative drive, but also a rebellious streak that was apparent from a very young age.
Yeah, you see it early on.
Dropping out of school. And then a very brief and, let's say, troubled time in the Navy as a way to avoid the draft.
Right.
Which ultimately led to time in military prison.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to deal with.
Yeah. Really pushing against those established norms right from the start.
Yeah. But what's amazing is that spirit, that rebellious spirit. It doesn't derail his musical ambitions.
It doesn't.
Because he ends up in Toronto after all this, after the Navy experiences, and forms the Minor Birds.
Okay.
With a young Neil Young.
Neil Young.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's a story in and of itself, right?
Wow.
They actually get signed to Motown for a short period of time.
Really?
Yeah. But then his past catches up with him again. Leads to more time in prison. But here's the thing. Motown, they saw something in him. They couldn't ignore it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they recognized this raw talent that just needed, the right spark.
Yeah.
The right opportunity.
To ignite it.
Exactly.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And turn our attention to Mary Christine Brockert.
Right.
Who the world would come to know as Teena Marie. Born in Santa Monica, California in 1956. She was, as the book describes her, a white girl with a black soul and the voice to prove it.
And it's so true when you hear her voice. It's undeniable.
Her upbringing was a bit different, I would say, than Rick's.
Yeah, definitely a different kind of stability.
Yeah.
But music was still at the center of everything.
Yes.
For her too.
Yeah.
And it's crucial to understand that, to look at her early immersion in performing. I mean, she started singing at 2 years old.
Really?
Yeah. Even had a role on the Beverly Hillbillies when she was 8.
What?
Yeah. And she was already writing songs by the time she was 10.
Oh my gosh.
That's incredible. This early exposure, I mean, it just points to a prodigious talent.
Wow.
And then you think about her musical heroes, Billie Holiday, Aretha Franklin. I mean, it underscores that for Teena, it was all about the heart of the music, the soulfulness.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the race of the person performing it.
Right.
And, that perspective would become really significant.
Huge, yeah.
Later on in her career, as we'll see.
It really would. So she found her way to Motown in the mid-'70s.
Right.
But the label was stumped. They were like, how do we market a white artist with this incredibly deep, soulful voice?
It's kind of ironic, right, when you think about Motown's history.
It really is.
With legendary black artists. It shows you that even the well-established institutions, they can struggle when something doesn't fit into a neat little category.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that breakthrough, I think, started with a collision.
Okay.
The moment that Motown brought Rick James and Teena Marie together.
Right.
Rick, who was at the top of his game at this point, '78 explosive debut, huge hits like You and I, Mary Jane, he immediately recognized something special.
I mean, think about this. Here's Rick, who's busy carving out this bold new sound in funk music, and he recognizes a kindred spirit in Teena.
Yeah.
He's not threatened by her talent.
At all.
He seems genuinely compelled to nurture it, to help her find her footing.
Yeah.
And so his decision to collaborate so closely on her debut album, Wild and Peaceful in 1979, I mean, that was pivotal.
Huge.
He produced and co-wrote all the tracks, including her breakout hit, I'm a Sucker for Your Love.
Huge hit. Yeah, it was a huge turning point for both of them.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then there's this crazy curveball.
What happened?
Motown makes this decision not to feature Teena's face on the album cover.
Oh, wow.
And that led people to assume she was Black. And the reveal during her live performances was, the book says, seismic.
I bet.
This petite white woman unleashing this powerful, soulful voice.
Yeah.
It shattered people's expectations.
It really speaks volumes about the racial dynamics.
It does.
That were at play back then.
Yeah.
It highlights the power of the music itself.
Absolutely.
To transcend those superficial boundaries.
Yeah, the surprise wasn't just about the visual not matching the sound. It was about the talent. It was about the talent that just couldn't be categorized.
It couldn't be contained.
And their onstage chemistry, the book describes, was undeniable. But offstage, things were complicated.
Yeah. And that's putting it mildly.
Yeah. This sets the stage for us to really understand the next part of their story. This passionate but often volatile bond that they had.
To grasp the complexities of their relationship, you need to understand that their connection was deeply rooted in a shared love.
Yeah.
A profound respect for music. On that level, they truly understood each other.
Absolutely.
But Rick's struggles, his documented struggles with drug use.
Right.
And what the book describes as a very controlling personality.
Yeah.
That often clashed with Teena's fiercely independent nature.
It did, yeah.
They were never officially a couple.
Right.
In the traditional sense.
Yeah.
But the book makes it abundantly clear they were entangled.
Deeply.
On an emotional level.
Deeply entangled.
Deeply.
And you can almost hear it in Teena's music, can't you?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about the raw emotion in those ballads. Like Casanova Brown, Out on a Limb, and Dear Lover. It's hard not to connect that pain to the complexities of her relationship with Rick. It's almost like her art was directly reflecting.
It's like a window into her soul.
Yeah. Meanwhile, as this is all going on, Rick's career is skyrocketing.
Taking off.
Super Freak, Give It to Me, Baby, Cold-Blooded. These became massive, iconic hits.
Yeah, he was on fire.
His stage presence, his style, larger than life. He became the self-proclaimed king of punk funk.
He really embraced that persona, didn't he?
But behind all the bravado and the outward success, his personal battle with addiction was steadily escalating.
Yeah. It's a classic cautionary tale. You see it often in rock and roll, popular music. Immense success, excessive lifestyle choices. It can be a dangerous combination.
Yes.
And, Rick reached incredible heights.
Yeah.
But his inability to really manage that addiction, that started to cast a shadow.
It did.
On his personal life, his professional life. And, by the mid-1980s, their paths, musically and personally, they started to diverge.
They did.
Quite significantly.
And Teena really began to establish herself as a force.
Yeah.
Her 1983 lawsuit against Motown was a huge moment.
Oh, yeah. Landmark moment.
And that led directly to the Brockert Initiative, protecting artists' rights. That's a legacy that extends far beyond her music.
It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to understand the Brockert Initiative, it demonstrates her courage.
Yeah.
Her commitment to fairness, in the music industry. She was not just a talented artist.
Right.
She was a businesswoman.
Yeah.
She was an advocate.
Right.
For other musicians.
And she had subsequent solo albums, It Must Be Magic, Star Child, Emerald City.
All classics.
They really solidified her own status. And Lover Girl, that massive hit in 1984.
Oh, yeah.
Crossover hit. Introduced her to an even wider audience.
She really stepped out of Rick's shadow.
Yeah, she did.
Established her own career.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of poignant,
Yeah.
The book notes that she never stopped loving Rick.
Yeah.
Despite forging her own path.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
So while Teena is building her own musical empire, Rick's life was taking a really dark turn.
Yeah, a tragic turn.
The late 80s, early 90s saw him really deep in the throes of addiction, increasing paranoia, acts of violence.
Yeah.
His arrest in 1991.
Right.
And then his conviction in 1994 for kidnapping and assault, which resulted in a prison sentence.
It's a really devastating fall from grace.
It is.
It highlights the consequences of addiction.
Yeah.
It can really take a toll on a life.
When you read the details of his arrest, it's just a picture of a life that had really spiraled.
Yeah.
Completely out of control.
Yeah.
And, when he was released from prison, you could see he was diminished.
Yeah, you could see the lasting effects.
You could.
Of the substance abuse.
Yeah. But even after all that, his musical legacy and his connection to Teena, it resonated with a lot of people.
It did.
Their 2004 reunion performance at the Beat Awards, where they performed Fire and Desire, was powerful.
Oh, I bet.
Especially knowing everything that happened between them.
Yeah.
Sadly, it was their last shared stage appearance.
Oh, wow.
But you could see the history, the connection.
That chemistry was still there.
Even after all those years, it was still there.
It's amazing how music can do that, bring people together.
It is. Sadly, neither of them had much time left after that.
Right.
Rick James died just a few months later, August of 2004, at the age of 56.
That's so young.
It is. Heart failure. And the report said they found a number of substances in his system.
It's a tragic end.
It is.
To a life that was, both brilliant and troubled.
And Teena, she was devastated.
Oh, of course. I mean, after all they went through.
Yeah. But she did return to music.
She did.
La Doña.
Yeah.
Congo Square. Those are great albums. And she focused her energy on raising her daughter.
Her daughter, Elia Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just a few short years later, December of 2010, she died suddenly in her sleep.
Oh, no.
At the age of 54.
That's too young.
Way too young. It was a seizure, probably caused by a fall she had recently.
Just a reminder.
It is.
Of how fragile life is.
It is. It really is. So their story, it's a story about a profound soulmate connection forged through this shared passion for music amidst all the complications.
The struggles.
Genius, addiction, healing, and heartbreak.
And a very unique form of love.
Yeah, it wasn't a conventional relationship.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But it was powerful.
Yeah.
And it left a mark.
It did, on both their lives.
And their music.
And their musical legacy, thankfully, lives on.
Yes.
Rick James's music, you hear it sampled all the time.
All the time.
By contemporary artists.
Yeah.
And Teena Marie, she remains a revered figure.
Especially in the Black music community.
Yes. And that duet, Fire and Desire.
It's a classic.
A timeless classic.
Yep.
And I think it really encapsulates their relationship.
It does. The passion.
Yeah.
The complexity.
Yeah. So I think the question for us as we end this is, how often do we see these intensely creative partnerships?
Yeah.
So intertwined with these complicated, sometimes painful dynamics.
Yeah.
And how does that combination, that fire and desire, continue to echo in the world of soul and funk music today?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next time.